What's up, herbalist? This is Mason, and you're listening to HerbRally. Our goal for the show is to help you along your herbalist journey no matter what stage you're at. Today's episode, I'm incredibly excited to have on Brigitte Mars, herbalist Brigitte Mars, and we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite plants, and that is, of course, dandelion. So during this conversation, we chat about some botany of the dandelion. We talk about the medicinal uses, how you can use it as food, why it's a heroic herb, and just a ton more. It's basically like a 45-minute plant monograph on dandelion, which actually she just came out with a new book. It's called Dandelion Medicine, and that in itself is just an incredible dandelion monograph. So you're definitely going to want to pick up this book. I will leave a link to it in the podcast show notes as well as the YouTube description. So yeah, if you want to see some visuals to this conversation, definitely check out the YouTube video as well. I will leave a link to that in the podcast show notes as well. And last but not least, if you've been enjoying the show, pretty please leave us some sort of written review, star ranking in your podcast player of choice. It'd really mean the world to us, helps spread the word of HerbRally. And if you're watching on YouTube, can you give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment? We always love hearing from you. So, all right, that's going to do it for my rambling today. Enjoy today's episode with Brigitte Mars, where we talk all about dandelion. And definitely do pick up that book, Dandelion Medicine. It is awesome. I will leave a link to that in the podcast show notes as well. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Smoking herbal blends. We need some mullein and some kush, my brethren. While listening to HerbRally Podcast again. Herbalism at its finest with Mason Hutchinson. Yeah.
Welcome back to the HerbRally Podcast. Today I'm incredibly honored to have on Brigitte Mars, and we're going to talk all about her new book, Dandelion Medicine, one of my very favorite plants. And you know, Brigitte, the last time I saw you was at the Good Medicine Confluence. You were teaching about a different weed, cannabis sativa. So today we're going to talk all about Taraxacum officinale, aka bitterwort, aka blowball, aka consuelda, fairy clock, puffball, pissenlit, wetabed, wild endive, and many other names that I learned in your book, also known as dandelion. So I just really loved digging through this book today. I'm a huge fan of herbal monographs, and I got to say, this is basically like a beautifully written, beautifully designed 192-page dandelion monograph of sorts. So why don't we kick things off by reading your poem at the very beginning of the book? Brigitte, would you like to read that, or do you want me to do it?
I'd be honored to read it. Thank you, Mason.
Yeah, you bet.
So it's called Dandelion. Dandelion, don't you be crying. We're doing our best to tell the world about you. Sunshine bright, you ray of light, concentrating solar energy. You are free, growing all around me. Blessed be, yea, God, ray of gold, I am told, helps heal people and the planet. I do believe it's time to perceive the truth about weeds that fulfill so many of our needs. Breathe deep the breath of life. Hurrah, dandelion.
Amen. I love that so much. Well, you know, Brigitte, we're going to have you back on the other show on HerbRally called the Herbalist Hour, where we delve deep into your background and everything. But for now, let's keep it all about dandelion. First of all, and the book, why did you feel compelled to write this book?
Well, you know, I've heard that the average American recognizes like 1,000 logos and the products they're associated with. You know, before kids can even read, they like, Jack in the Box, or, you know,
McDonald's.
All those things. And yet most Americans, you know, not people that are listening to your podcast, but they recognize less than 5 plants or 5 birds in their area. And yet, very often when people see the dandelion, they think that that's a sign that they need to go buy some toxic chemical at the hardware store to kill them. And really, I do believe that dandelions are one of the most useful plants on the face of the earth. Indeed, if I were going to another planet, I would bring dandelion seeds with me, nettle seeds, and probably cannabis seeds too.
There you go. I want to say, I'm not sure if it's out yet, but did you also write a book or working on a book all about nettle as well?
Yes, it'll be called Nettle Power, and it's with Hatchet Books or Story Books, as they used to be called, and it should be out pretty soon. So awesome. I love nettles. Mm-hmm.
Same.
And so, you know, we need to change our perception because, you know, even in hip Boulder, Colorado, where I live, people are still putting up those little signs warning pesticides applied. And a couple weeks ago, my friend came over and said, "My God, they're spraying herbicides in Whole Foods parking lot." And I just got sprayed in my eyes. And then my housemate came home. "Oh my God, they're spraying pesticides in Whole Foods parking lot." And I said, "Well, I could complain about it, or let's go make a TikTok." So we just drove over there and filmed it, and hopefully, Whole Foods, you should know better. I know you're not perfect, and you have brought or great food to many parts of the country that lack that. But come on, we've got to walk our talk more than that. It's not just for profit. And we need to let people know that having dandelions in your yard really is a sign that you are caring about the environment, that you're caring about people's health, that you're caring about the bees and the pollinators and so many things, that the dandelions aerate the soil. They are not the enemy. And they're also considered one of the top 5 most nutritious vegetable. So, here at our house this week, we've had dandelion spanakopita, dandelion muffins. I made a dandelion flour cake. There's all kinds of wonderful recipes in here. And of course, I use a lot of the other weeds too. Right. But the idea of bringing something into your home, your kitchen, your body that was growing like 10 minutes before you're eating it, you can't get that, even at the best health food stores, even at the farmer's market. So I really feel that we save thousands of dollars a year and that we are imbibing a freshness. I could just go on and on, but if I may, I want to say one other thing.
Please.
Many of us that care about the environment, we're looking around and say, boy, there's like so many problems. Are they really spraying chemtrails? And why are they still putting fluoride in the water? And, toxic media. And so I really feel that one of the answers to all of these problems is to eat the plants that are what I call Jedi survivors. They survive adversity. I mean, nobody planted the dandelions unless maybe you're one of the few that buy seeds from Strictly Medicinals or something. No one planted it, no one watered it, no one mulched it, no one weeded it. As a matter of fact, they even tried to mow it down. And what happens? It comes back just a little bit shorter next time. That is a Jedi tactic to overcome adversity and proliferate. And, many herbalists know about the doctrine of signatures, that plants often tell us what they're good for. And when I see the survival instinct of dandelion, I feel that, yes, there's all kinds of problems and perils in the world, but by eating the weeds, we are imbibing this intelligence that's going to help us adapt to adversity.
Yeah, you were mentioning if you see the dandelion growing in your garden, that's a sign of health. And in your book, you reference an old farmer's saying, where the dandelion grows, the garden will flourish. And boy, I'll tell you, there's dandelions growing all over our garden right now, which tells me a lot, makes me super happy, it makes me smile. Love the dandelion. In fact, Brigitte, check out this tattoo I got right here.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah, I love me some dandelion, exactly. Well, you go into lots of different stuff, like you were mentioning recipes, there's folklore, there's medicinal uses, the virtues, all the above. Why don't we start things off talking about some basic botany? What's the plant family and what are some distinguishing characteristics of the dandelion?
Well, dandelion is a member of the Asteraceae family, which used to be called Compositae, meaning they are composed of many tiny flowers. So when we see a dandelion, it's actually a conglomeration. It's a whole family and party of plants there. But they often look like rays of sun. And so I think of Asteraceae being somewhat related to Astarte, or she who came from the stars, because they do look like little sun rays. And, we could also even say that dandelion is an herb of Leo, Leo ruled by the sun. You could also say that it's somewhat related to Jupiter. But dandelion, there's many Asteraceae family members like sunflower. They're not all yellow. We've got echinacea, but we also have cosmos, and we've got calendula and chamomile and pineapple weed. So it's a really big family. And even some of our vegetables are in that family, like lettuce and chicory and endive. and
Artichoke, maybe?
artichokes. Yeah, artichokes. Yeah, Jerusalem artichokes too. So it's a really big family. And, there's sow thistle. So how do we tell if it's a bona fide dandelion? So they have a basal rosette leaf that grows flat on the ground, whereas things like sow thistle and prickly lettuce and, all of those wild lettuce, they grow up the stalk. Chicory, they grow up the stalk. So I'm going to run and just grab a dandelion.
Please.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Right back.
Show and tell.
That's what's around my house there. So the beautiful leaves.
There you are.
One of the names, the word dandelion actually comes from tooth of the lion, Dandelion. So you might imagine that they're. But they grow in a basal rosette, so they're flat on the ground, and there's only one flower per stem. And there's the flower, one of the most recognized plants. And I'll tell you, I went to a hardware store recently, and they had all these huge shelves at the entrance of Roundup. And I said, let me talk to the manager. I will no longer be shopping here because you support Roundup, which is not necessary. So dandelion also has milky white sap that exudes from the stem, some cases, but there's nothing ugly about it. It's really beautiful. It looks like little rays of sunshine. And, every part of it has a use. So that's about a little bit of the botany. I don't consider myself, a botanist as much of a, medical herbalist, but every part of this plant we can use in some way. And I have so much fun turning people onto this. And I live right downtown in Boulder, Colorado. So I'm not someone who lives in the country. I've never learned to drive a car. So I'm, really opportunistic about there's free food and medicine everywhere. And I really relish when we find a vacant lot. And, there's bees and butterflies and all kinds of animals make use of this plant. So should we.
Well, you said you're not a botanist, but you were speaking the language. I was picking up everything you were putting down. And I remember the first time I learned that the dandelion flower is actually tons of flowers packed inside of a head. And that just blew me away. And it just made me appreciate the dandelion so much more. You were speaking about the edibility and the ubiquitous nature of it, and it's free food. And that was actually how I was originally introduced to the dandelion, was my friend Phil, shout out Phil, back when I was 18 and just getting into nutrition and herbalism. He was like, did you know you could eat that? And it just blew my mind. And I was just so stoked to know that this abundant source of free food and just this incredible plant was available to us humans. So I love all of what you said. You mentioned each part is useful in some way. So we got the root, we got the leaves, we got the flowers. Then of course, there's also the stem and the seeds. Would you mind going over, some of the different parts and talk about, say, the uses or the virtues of each of those parts? I'm incredibly curious because I still don't really know. Is the stem and the seeds actually useful, besides obviously reproducing and necessary for the dandelion? But yeah, why don't we talk about some of the uses of the dandelion?
Yes, I would love to do that. I want to say a couple things first.
Sure.
Years ago, I was attending city council meetings to get it on the ballot.
Freudian slip.
Why do you think you need to spray the dandelions, which are not native to here? They're actually native to Eurasia. And the answer was, well, they're not from around here, and people might trip over them. And then I looked around the room and I said, are any of us from around here, including my Native American friends over there? The Earth Guardians, we're all from somewhere else. And it is the nature of nature to move around, we don't all stay on one island. So in the springtime, the leaves are going to be tastiest. And so again, spanakopita, salad, whatever you might use spinach in, you could use dandelions, dandelion lasagna. So all these recipes are in this book. And then the blossoms right now, in the book, there's recipes for dandelion muffins. I made dandelion flour cookies the other day. That is really delicious. And dandelion wine, of course, Ray Bradbury wrote a book called Dandelion Wine. And again, there's recipes for that in Dandelion Medicine. And then I was teaching in Iceland, and I learned a new thing, that you could boil the stems in a pot of boiling water and then strain it. It's best if they're still kind of tender, and then drain it, strain it, and then add olive oil or butter and garlic and salt, and you've got dandelion noodles.
Wow, I love that.
And then I just saw someone just sent me, maybe it was a TikTok, that you could collect the dandelion seeds, put them in a ball jar with a sprouting lid on, and grow little microgreens. So that's another possibility, to grow sprouts from the seeds, which is something I have not yet tried, but I'm going to do that. And then the root of the dandelion, which you can harvest pretty much any time of the year. A lot of people say, even after the frost, the cold weather tends to caramelize the root. So I dig up the root and scrub it really well. I like to slice it diagonally. And then you could add something like toasted sesame oil and a little tamari and either saute it, or if you like doing it raw, you could put it in a food dehydrator. So those are just some of the edible uses. And, I just think it's crazy that people will poison the dandelions and then get in their car, which uses gas, and buy, lettuce from the same family that's imported from another state that takes, thousands of miles to get here and is not nearly as nutritious and mostly water. I mean, look at this rich green color telling us that it has so much chlorophyll in there. And again, it's strong and hardy and adaptable. They've even tried giving this plant 20,000 volts of electricity and it still comes back. And if you dig up the root, and as long as a little piece of the root is left in the ground, it's like the cat came back. So that tells us something. We need to be, like the dandelion. I truly consider it a Jedi plant.
At 20,000 volts of electricity. I read that in your book as well. And I was, I want to say I was surprised, but maybe I shouldn't be. Very resilient warrior plant. Were there any other doctrine of signatures about the dandelion that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I'd say, the yellow color, the flower, it's high in lutein, which is good for our eyes. And Matthew Wood would often say things that look like rays of sunshine often illuminate parts of our body that need illuminating, like, maybe infections that are deep in the body. I heard him say this about calendula, another relative. But dandelion root is said to be good for getting rid of old stored emotions. This whole epidemic of so many people being depressed and on medication, dandelion root, when we think of like roots, help the energy to descend and help clear things out of our liver where we often tend to store things like, anger and jealousy and bitterness and all of that. So I think, there's probably a whole lot more in here about the doctrine of signatures, but
there is.
Maybe you remember some of them, but that's what I think of. And then, there's also a lot of press that it's even good for clearing up skin conditions and even, would be a great medicine for people with cancer. It's a dye plant. Like, it's got so many uses. And I really think we've been bamboozled to see the weeds as enemies. And supposedly that was something started by the British aristocracy in the late 1800s, because they would actually, the peasant people would actually pull the grass out of their yard to make room for the edible and medicinal herbs. And, I do that. But then there was this thing about like, well, if we're really like well-to-do, we're just going to have like a lawn that's suitable for croquet and badminton. And then people drive by in their carriages, they'll just say, they must be so rich. They must be so rich. The doctor will bring them leeches when they are sick, and the servants will go to the market and, all that. So, this plant is truly a champion and really fun to work with. And, supposedly also it was one of the original bitter herbs of Passover in the Jewish tradition to commemorate the bitter years of slavery. And so, we tend to disdain bitter. And I know that now horseradish is kind of used in place of that, which is more of a pungent than a bitter. But, the fact that dandelion, there's really nothing like it. It's, and easy to grow. I just marvel.
You mentioned the Roundup a couple times, and I have this distinct memory a couple years ago when Amanda and I were traveling across the country in our RV, which we no longer have. We stayed at this one RV park. I forget what state, but that's irrelevant to the story. And so it was this temporary camping ground for for RVs. It wasn't like people were living there months on end and they felt like this ownership over this place. So that made this story all the more strange. One morning we woke up and we saw this person outside of their RV literally spraying Roundup on the dandelions in a place that they don't even live full time. Can you believe that?
It really hurts me because I see how pervasive the ignorance is.
Yeah,
And I mean, if you watch an hour of TV, which we just have Netflix, we don't really have TV, but the
sure.
few times I've watched it, we are being marketed junk food, pesticides, get your vaccine at Target, and prescription drugs.
Yeah,
I mean, there's something really wrong with the paradigm here.
totally.
So unfortunately, I mean, it really does make me feel, like forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Right.
Really. And to think that the dandelion was a mistake in creation or something, it's like, I gave you so much.
Yeah.
How can you resist this beauty that brings sunshine to the area? And I grew up in suburbia, Syracuse, and we had the manicured lawn. But of course, I had this wonderful French Canadian grandmother who was like into the folk remedies. But I remember where the kids all wanted to play was the people that lived by the swamp, where they had cattails we could use as swords and wands, and dandelions we can make crowns and blow on the little puffball to make the how many what time is it blow clock so it was like the people by the swamp that really had the cool yard where the kids wanted to be, even though they didn't have as many toys.
Right. I'm thinking of Ryan Drum right now, like whipping people with the seaweed too, the bulk help. You're also reminding me in your book, I don't think there was a very large section, maybe it was just like a little quote, but you mentioned that there used to be back maybe in the 1900s, 2000s, something, there was a National Dandelion Society. And I was like, shit, we gotta spearhead that. We gotta bring back the National Dandelion Society.
Well, there are, more and more dandelion festivals. We
That's
did put
cool.
one on in Boulder. Carbondale,
Really?
Colorado has one. I hear that Vineland, New Jersey is like the dandelion capital of the United States. So more and more places are doing that. It seems like you got to do it like in April when and just another signature about dandelion is most plants have a flowering time for about 2 weeks. We've got lilacs for 2 weeks. We've got there's some exceptions to that, but the dandelions and the sunflowers, both in that Asteraceae family, seem to have a flowering time that could be even a couple months.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. This shows the durability of such a plant.
Yeah, they're all over our yard right now. And we moved into this house a couple years ago. It's a 0.1 acre plot, and I feel like our lawn, it's already small. It's like shrinking as our garden is growing, which I loving. We're planting all sorts of different wildflowers, and no matter what, wherever the dandelions are, we're just going to keep those there, and we'll like grow the other plants around it. So it's been a joy just to encourage the growth. You mentioned Strictly Medicinals earlier, selling the seeds, and I just can't help but laugh. But it makes me so excited that people are out there buying dandelion seeds to help grow them in their yard.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, we talked about Doctrine of Signatures, some uses, some what else did we talk about? Botany. Is there any like lore or stories that you'd like to share about the dandelion?
There's this Native American story that, there was this beautiful maiden with hair of gold and a couple of young braves like, oh, I want to claim her to be my bride. But they waited and waited, and then she just had gray hair that was blowing off in the wind. So I think that's a lesson. And, get it while it's in its prime, or you're just going to have the seeds to sprout, or maybe none. She will be bald. So, there are a lot of Native stories. I love the book Song of the Seven Herbs, I believe, by Padilla. I think that's the Latin name or the author's name. well, not Latin name, author's name.
Sure.
But I think that story comes from that book, Song of the Seven Herbs. It has a lot of native legends. And yeah, that's, certainly Hans Christian Andersen wrote stories that incorporated herbs, though the wild swans has nettles as a theme. The elder tree mother is another story by Hans Christian Andersen. So I kind of think we need more stories. I'm
Absolutely.
sure, it kind of also represents the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, because it really is a treasure.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about the botany. There is also a false dandelion, at least there was in the Pacific Northwest. It's called Hypocaris radicata. And just like kind of a differentiator, I know a lot of times people will be like, oh, there's a dandelion. But really, in my head, I know it's like false dandelion or cat tongue, cat tail. What do they call that? Cat something. Cat's ear, maybe.
Yeah.
But I know one of the
Okay.
distinguishing characteristics that's different, as you were saying on the dandelion, it's one stem, whereas like the false dandelion has a bunch of like stems off of each other. And then also I want to say it's like hairier leaves. Like I don't even think there's necessarily hair on the dandelion leaf, but the false dandelion has super hairy leaves, and then it's more like lobed leaves as opposed to the Dandelion, the lion's tooth. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I've never used false dandelion as medicine. I've heard that you could use it similarly to dandelion, but do you have any thoughts on false dandelion?
Oh, well, I've used sow thistle, which is also considered like a false dandelion.
Oh,
Sow thistle, same thing. You can harvest it. It's edible while it's still young. It tends to get a little more bitter after it flowers, as do a lot of plants, including, oregano and thyme. So,
mm-hmm.
oh, have fun with it. Make some recipes.
That's right.
Delight people, like these dandelion flower cookies, dandelion flower cake. I'm, still learning. And just the fact that you can imbibe something so delicious and nutritious.
Yeah.
We've really, we just need to get back on track. And we know that eating more locally is one of the small things we can do for the environment. We need to start going to homeowners association meetings and, voting and saying we would rather have a lawn where our children and our pets can frolic and picnic. We don't need to, a bunch of us went to a museum to go watch the IMAX theater. And, we thought, well, let's go have a picnic in the park outside. And we saw all these signs, warning pesticides applied. And we saw 2 dead squirrels and a dead rabbit. And yet this is a museum where you should know better, because your museum is having exhibits on, ancient peoples and animals and the quest for preserving this beautiful planet. So, but I do feel that these homeowners associations, there's many parts of the country where if you have weeds in your yard, they will send someone to mow it, and they will ticket you, or they will send you a bill for having it mowed. And this is like a really archaic thing. I mean, we could think about a lot of things that were once accepted that are no longer considered really smart things to do. Like we're no longer putting mercury fillings in our mouth, hopefully. We're no longer putting mercurochrome, a mercury solution, on our wounds. There's a lot. So we have to be willing to evolve and look at what's going on with our planet, with the health of the people of the planet. And this plant really, the Latin name Taraxacum officinale means the official remedy for the disorder. That is a high honor. So why would we kill the official remedy of the disorder? And anytime you hear the word officinale or officinalis, it means official, and it means it has a long history of use in the apothecaries, perhaps thousands of years. And it's also used in Chinese medicine too. Puyongying, or I believe is the Chinese name. So, they grow it in China, and even have, different varieties and cultivars and all of that. And so we're all here. People that are interested in herbs want to make a difference. We want to help the planet. We want to help the people, the pollinators, the bees, and all of that. And one of the things I've heard is that when pesticides are sprayed, the bees who might not know that it's been sprayed will collect pollen, and then they get confused and they can't find their way back to the hive. And hive collapse is a real thing. I'm not saying that pesticides are the only reason for it, but that's certainly one of the reasons. And even if you did put a sign up, the bees aren't reading the sign. And some neighbors on our block did spray pesticides recently. And I went to pick a piece of trash up in the yard. There was no sign applied, but my fingers were burning from touching the trash that was in the yard.
You can actually feel it.
What are you thinking? And you think, oh, it's just my yard, I can do what I want. But the winds and the rains come, and it kills not only the bees and the butterflies, but it kills the microorganisms in the soil, so that nothing really is going to grow well.
I just don't. Keep going, Brigitte. My bad.
And the thing with grass, like we're using a third of our nation's water to water lawns. And if that wasn't stupid enough, then we use more gasoline to mow it down.
Tell them.
Yeah, I know. That's why, herbalists are doing a great thing. Of all the careers in the world, I feel like we're rooting for the people and the planet, and hopefully the Creator knows that this is one of the ways that we can do our thing to help the pollinators. Because without the bees, humanity is going to be in bad shape. Already vanilla is one of the most expensive herbs because it has to be hand pollinated. Right. How much do you want to pay for an apple that has to be hand pollinated? And that is already going on in some parts of the world. Of course, when I was growing up, an apple was 10 cents. Now to buy a nice organic apple, it's, at least $1, if not $2.
Oh, totally. So you mentioned getting burned by that Roundup or some sort of chemical on someone's lawn. And I had that situation where at the RV park, someone was spraying. Then I see my neighbor the other day, spraying his yard right next to ours. And I'm just wondering, do you have any advice to offer to folks who, because in the RV park, I was actually starting to feel upset, and I debated actually talking to that person, like, why in the hell are you doing this? But I didn't, because I don't necessarily like conflict, as do a lot of people. A lot of people don't like getting in conflict. So do you have any, would you go up to someone and say, why are you doing that? Or do you have any recommendations to folks who might want to talk to their neighbors, or just how do you approach that?
Well, one thing I've done is I wrote a letter to the editor of the newspaper, the local newspaper. And I do have an article online. It's called Get Off Your Grass and Create an Edible Lawn. And it was originally written in Huffington Post. So nice. Get off your grass and create an edible lawn. It's still online if you Google it. And part of the article, it doesn't say, don't be a jerk and spray the dandelions. It says, you could grow chickweed, you could grow violets, you could grow Dutch white clover. There's many alternatives of lawns that will not grow too tall, that are, bee friendly and pollinator friendly. So we've got to give them solutions. But I've also printed out a little letter, and I will go into a bank or a store or a medical clinic or something and give the letter to them, and it'll say, I will not do business with your bank, your clothing store, because you are spraying pesticides.
Yeah.
All right. And I hope I embarrassed Whole Foods by making that very public on TikTok. I have a lot of TikTok followers. But I also have, and my daughter Rainbow, who lives in LA, has created 12 homes in her neighborhood have decided that they want to create a food forest. And she's been covered, Rainbow Mars in the LA Times, and, been on Good Morning America and all that. So we need more press like that. But I do have two neighbors who I have an agreement with. They don't spray their yards. They're willing for me to come and bring my class over there to harvest dandelions. And again, we're right downtown Boulder. And as a way to thank them, I bring them some dandelion muffins or dandelion spanakopita or, dandelion quiche or something like that. And so I'm just so grateful. So by educating the neighbors, giving them a copy of the book, printing out a little letter like, you think it's only your yard, but my children are breathing this air. My puppy is frolicking out there in the common grounds of our condominium association and so forth. So those are my suggestions for activism. We've heard the pen is mightier than the sword, but we also have YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, podcasts like HerbRally, where we get to be a voice and we can share it. We can speak out. And I'm going to send you a song called Dandelion that my partner wrote. We
Awesome.
could create dandelion festivals. Like we've had here in Boulder, where there was a dandelion cook-off contest and classes and dandelion wine making class and, herb walks, because of course, dandelion's not the only great herb that we love, but it does seem to be a symbol of this education that we need to have, because everybody knows what it looks like.
Absolutely. I want to say this story because I've never said this publicly, but when I was a kid, I was kind of a troubled kid and I was trying to cause a ruckus. And I remember one of the ways I was going to do that was, when I did do this, is I would take the dandelion seed heads and I'd blow them all over the place. This was well before that I knew I was going to be an herbalist or in the herbal realm. And I just thought that I was causing trouble and stuff out there, just blowing the seeds everywhere. But now I'm kind of proud of myself looking back in the day, and like I was spreading the dandelion seeds for the better.
Way to go. You knew it all along.
I guess it was deep in my heart. Is there anything else about the book you'd like to share? I definitely want to end on a couple things. What I'd like to end on is definitely this poem. I also want you to share your final plea for dandelion, because that's somewhere in the book as well. And I thought that was really great. But are there things that I'm not covering that you definitely want to go over in the book?
Well, we just, want to add as a medicine plant, dandelion is an herb that I will include in formulas for skin, eczema, acne, psoriasis, not only liver complaints like hepatitis and jaundice, improving vision. I mean, yes, you can buy a bottle of lutein at the store, but you could also eat dandelion blossoms and get lutein from there. You can also, so I'm just saying, you feel it when you eat these wild things. You feel invigorated. You are imbibing a chi and a life force that is really profound. And so the medicinal uses are, go so vast. I could go on and on and on, but root vegetables can help us feel more grounded. Like if you're like, oh, I'm always losing my keys and I'm always late, eat more roots. I have this recipe in one of my books called Roots Rock Reggae about,
awesome.
Cutting up all the roots, rutabaga and sweet potatoes, burdock root. So I love this herb. It's really safe. It's something that could be used for a long period of time, and every part of it has a use. My daughter, Sunflower, I have two daughters, Sunflower and Rainbow. Sunflower had some warts on her knees, and she took the sap from the dandelion and just dotted on her knee maybe 5 times a day, and within a week, the warts on her knee were gone. So
amazing. So shout out Sunflower, shout out Rainbow. That's Rainbow, Beau, right?
Yes.
I love that.
Thank you. I just want to say, it's beautifying. It just, who doesn't like truth, beauty, and goodness,
That's right. You mentioned your TikTok a couple times. Where can folks follow you? Like, what's your @ and what kind of content do you publish there?
It's a Brigitte Mars 01, and I do all kinds of stuff like recipes, social commentary, usually about the environment, herbs, weeds, eat the weeds seems to be a big theme. But then I also do something like don't sleep with them until they meet the 7-chakra checklist, or healing the spirit from a broken heart, or, so kind of whatever I want. I'm a grandmother, so I feel like I can give a little bit of grandmotherly wisdom.
That's awesome. How many followers do you have, out of curiosity?
I think like 37,000.
Oh my goodness, you're killing it. I love it.
Doing more. Yeah, so it's doing more than, Instagram and all that. And I do think TikTok is the voice of freedom. And I just want to say this, like, dandelion leaves are diuretic, so they help to detoxify the kidneys. And most chemical diuretics deplete the body of potassium, but dandelions give the body potassium. And of course, you say, well, why aren't we just recommending dandelion, capsules or dandelion tea? And that is because you cannot patent a plant. As a matter of fact, sometimes those same companies want us to, buy a product, and they have to spend a lot of money to bring a new drug into the marketplace. So if they're doing all this research to recommend a diuretic, and now you've got to go buy their potassium supplement to counteract the ramifications of taking the diuretic, the pharmaceutical companies don't win. But by using the dandelion, as our friend David Hoppen liked to say, somewhere on the face of the earth, there's going to be fields of flowers. And, would you rather have that in your neighborhood, or would you rather have some chemical company spewing fumes and things into the water? So we've got a lot of work to do, and we're doing it. So
do you ever think the reason it's vilified is because it's so ubiquitous? Like, what if dandelions were rare? Would people be planting them as if it was like this beautiful, yellow, gorgeous flower? You know what I mean? Do you think it's just because it's a weed?
Oh, yeah, probably. But the fact that something grows like a weed just shows you it's got some kind of strength. And, even though I love superfoods, like goji berries from the highlands of Tibet and all that, but
sure,
I really feel like we have superfoods right here.
That's right.
The dandelion and the chickweed and the nettles, let's use what's growing on our continent.
Absolutely. Another point that I wanted to bring up that I read in your book, I never knew this before, but you said flowers close up when it's about to rain, dandelion flowers. Have you witnessed that before, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're going to collect them, you don't want to wait till dusk, or if it's going to rain, they'll close up even, in the early afternoon to protect their pollen. Yeah, that's cool. Pretty amazing.
Very intelligent plant. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, let's see what else we got. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't I read the James Russell, what's his name? James Russell Lowell poem, and then if if you want to do your final plea for dandelion, send us out on a rah, inspire us all, and make a change for the dandelion. So this one's by James Russell Lowell, and it's in the back of the book. And we'll be sure to splice in some beautiful imagery of the dandelion as well as your book, Brigitte, in this episode. So here it is. Yeah, of course. Dear common flower that grossed beside the way, fringing the dusty road with harmless gold, first pledge of blithesome May, which children pluck and full of pride uphold, high-hearted buccaneers o'erjoyed that they an Eldorado in the grass have found, which not the rich earth's ample round may match in wealth. Thou art more dear to me than all the prouder summer blooms may be. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too much, but just a cool way to open the book with your poem, close the book with that. It's a beautiful book, Brigitte. If you're listening, HerbRally Podcast listeners, please go purchase this book. Definitely pick up the nettle one as well. That's Dandelion Medicine, Forage, Feast, and Nourish Yourself with this extraordinary weed by one and only Brigitte Mars. Did you have any final last words, Brigitte, before we wrap up and get out of here?
Well, something I'd like to add, I'm going to send it to you if you want to splice it in, is a song called Dandelion by BethyLoveLight. And
let's do it.
There you go. So I'll send you that. But whenever I have the mic, there's always two things I like to say, and they don't have anything to do with dandelions per se, but I read this when I was 15, and I've always taken it to heart. If you have water to throw away, throw it on a plant. And you might even think about, encouraging the growth of some of your wild weeds like malva and dandelion and chickweed. And then the other one is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now.
Love that. Please do send that song. I'd love to splice it into the episode. That'd be really fun. And like I said, we'll get some fun footage and take some beautiful photos. Amanda, by the way, she's my wife and the co-owner of HerbRally. So we'll make this a really pretty episode, and just really appreciate your time and all the work you're doing. I'm seldom on TikTok, but I'll get on there and I'm going to go throw you a follow as well. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, Brigitte.
Well, bless you. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings to all the listeners. And I look forward to chatting again. Thank you, Mason.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to come back on when your Nettle book comes out or sometime shortly thereafter, that'd be awesome. We'll promote that book as well. So thanks y'all for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the HerbRally podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dandelion, don't you be crying. We will help the people to see all the medicine you give for free, yeah. It's the first food for the bees in the springtime. These radiant blooms of yellow sunshine, and you can make a salad right out your door, and it's fresher than anything at the store. Dandelion, you're so dandy, not lion. Oh, dandelion, no. We love you so, we're gonna let you grow, yeah. Cause everybody knows, pesticides got to go. The bees are dying, oh no. Let the wise weeds grow. The fresh young leaves are so dang good. They give you energy like the little engine that could. And the bitter flavor says, hey, I'm good for your liver, and I can help you detox better than ever. Better than ever, yeah. You can put them in a salad or a smoothie or juice. There's so many options, you just got to choose. They're totally free and they love to be pruned. And the best part is you can eat the flower bloom. You can eat that flower bloom, yeah. Dandelion, you're so dandelion. Oh, dandelion, we love you so, yeah. We're gonna let you grow, yeah. Cause everybody knows, pesticides got to go. The bees are dying, oh no. Let the wise weeds grow. Making a tea from the root is good for your skin, cause it activates your organs of elimination. You can also roast the root and then brew another tea, and it tastes like an earthy kind of herbal coffee. An herbal coffee, yeah. If you want to feel rooted, then eat some roots. And dandelion's perfect cause it's full of gratitude. I mean, if only rain waters it, still it grows. It's adapting to pollutants. There are things that it knows. There are things that it knows, yeah. So when we eat it up or we drink it on in, then the dandelion offers up this information, giving our DNA the word on how to thrive, straight from the mouth of a plant Jedi. Oh, dandelion, you're so dandelion. Oh, dandelion, we love you so.